this was potentially one of the best surprises of the 2024 defense last year. And that was the emergence of one Micah McFadden, who going into the year, when we talked about who was going to start alongside Bobby Okereke, we all thought it was another young player we're going to talk about here in a little bit. Micah McFadden did not impress too much the first year. Not that he was a bad rookie his first season.
He didn't embarrass himself, we'll say. But
Yeah.
he also, I mean, he didn't show the best promise.
No, he looked like an average late round draft pick rookie, which is not bad. There's plenty of guys that bust out in where he was drafted at that point and never even play an actual game in the NFL. So, like, I'm not knocking the man when I say it that way. So here's the stats on him real quick here. So 24 years old, 6'2", 232. He's a 5th round pick in 22 out of Indiana. Last season, 16 games, 14 starts, 101 tackles, 12 tackles for loss, 1 sack, 6 QB hits, 1 interception, 5 passes deflected, 4 fumbles recovered, a 65.6 PFF grade. Now, it does go without saying that most of those are all career highs as well, as he barely played the first season. But
when you go from a freshman to a sophomore, you do that.
From a backup to a starter, I mean.
Yeah.
But all like the whole entire offseason long, it's like, and we were like, okay, we think Darian Beaver's going to get it. Then he doesn't get it. Doesn't even make the active rosters of the season. Oh, Jared Davis is going to get it. He gets injured in training camp, and it's kind of like Micah McFadden was the last guy we expected to be a starter pretty much going into this. And
he stepped into that role and looked as best as he could have. Like, I'm not saying he looked fantastic, but he did a good job for the situation. Yeah. Like, I'm trying to tread lightly. Like, I'm not trying, like, you can't hype him up too much because he wasn't like all pro. But at the same time, he did a damn good job and a lot better than a lot of people thought he could be.
If you were to tell me that we were going to draft a player in the 5th round who would get over 100 tackles his second season in the NFL, that's a win, guys.
Yeah.
That's a freaking win and a half. That's a winner.
We drafted him in the 5th round. It'd be like next season, not this season, come next season, he gets 100 tackles plus.
Yeah.
He'd be like, okay. It'd be in the practice squad.
Yeah. I mean, that's, like I said, that's pretty damn good rookie season to have there. So I'll take it. I would say second season to have it. I'll take it.
Yeah.
The question is, can he gain a little more consistency? Because I feel like some games you heard his name like every 2 minutes, and some games he kind of disappeared. You know what I'm saying? Like, there were some games that you watched. Yeah. Like, he made amazing plays left and right. And there was other games you barely heard his name called at that point. So, I think he needs to gain a little consistency. Again, he was a second-year player, a first-year starter. He's going to have some issues, guys. If you're expecting perfection that early on, you're going to be disappointed. That's life.
Yeah.
So, but like I said, I'm kind of curious to see what happens and how he develops this year, because this is year 3. Year 3 is that year that you really start getting to know what you got. Like, if you haven't developed by year 3, chances are you're probably not going to develop into something. So,
hey, there's some late bloomers out there.
There are some.
Saying.
But there's not a lot. The high percentage of them get better and better as they start the league. They don't go like boop, boop. Like, it just doesn't work that way.
Sometimes
I had the sound effect for
right
the
away.
Podcast people, by the way. For the audio people, I had the little sound effect. Still don't want to feel left out.
Yeah, for everyone out there in podcast land, Drew just went from 6 to midnight, and now it's the sound effect.
Exactly. But that's what does happen, though, sometimes in the NFL, but it's not very often. Typically, it's a gradual ascension to become whatever your peak is going to be in your career. And usually year 3 is when you really see what that peak is going to be. So, I'm intrigued. I'm curious as far as what that ceiling is going to be for Micah McFadden. But I'll say this. I think he's already doing a good job as a second linebacker. We got a stud at linebacker number 1. You can't expect to have a stud everywhere. That's just not realistic, especially the salary cap days. He's a good linebacker. Not a great one. He's a good one. The question is, does he develop into becoming a great one eventually? I don't think so, but you never know.
But as long as he has Okereke next to him,
exactly,
he doesn't have to be great.
No,
he has to be good, and it'll just fall into his lap.
I'll make this claim even. This is going to sound a little crazy because I'm thinking far in advance. I always kind of think long term.
This is crazy. Drew's prediction. Tell us maybe.
This is a little goofball. In a couple of years, we got 2 more years. You have to go ahead and look at, are you going to go ahead and re-sign this guy? Now, let's say, for example, he ends up staying. Can we keep him in Okereke?
It's a good chance.
No, but what I'm saying is, like, if he develops, let's say he develops into a great player. Okay, let's say the hypothetically for a second there.
Okay.
You get to re-sign him in a couple of years. You're probably not going to be able to afford to keep him in Okereke long term. That's a good problem to have. Don't get me wrong. I'm not looking at disaster. But we talked before about Okereke saying, you know what, he could be here long term. He's still in his late 20s. Linebackers typically play into their, don't really decline until their early mid 30s at that point there. Well, here's a guy that might replace him potentially if he gets that good, and then you keep him, and you're going to have to probably let Okereke walk after the end of this contract. Like I said, I'm thinking long term here.
That's a great hypothetical that probably won't happen, but that's a great hypothetical if it does happen. You're probably right. That's the way it's going to happen because Okereke is going to get a lot more money than McFadden because.
Well, no, McFadden would have to get a lot more money if he turns out to be great because.
Yeah, but he's not going to get the same amount of money as Okereke. That's what I'm saying.
No, he get more.
Then
again, you got to consider the fact that Okereke is making less money than he would have based on what he did, this past season. If he was a free agent now, he'd be making $15 to $20 million. So what's going to happen in 2 years when you have to look at re-signing McFadden? Like I said, this is a great problem to have.
You're right, but
I'm just saying these are things that you got to look at as potentials in a couple of years. I'm looking way too far down the line. I know.
You are.
I know. It's okay.
There's too much things to happen. Oh my God.
So, like I said, it's a good problem to have there. And he might just develop into stay what he is right now. If he stays what he is right now, then he's probably going to be a guy who's going to be, get a mid-level contract and you keep both of them. You just don't know. I'm just looking at long-term prospects there with them.
That's what I see more happening today.
Yeah, and I agree with you. That's the more likely scenario. Like I said, I'm just putting a weird scenario out there if he does happen to become like a really great linebacker at that point. Because he's still I don't think he's peaked yet. I just don't know how high that peak's going to go.
That's what I'm thinking.
Yeah.
If he gets to the level of Okereke, you're probably gonna have to once Okereke's contract have 2 years.
Got 3 more years to go. It's a 4-year deal.
Years to go. And when it comes to McFadden,
he's got 2 more years to go before he had to sign him. Well, I'm saying it's going to coincide those contracts where they're close enough where this is going to be part of the decision.
Yeah. My thing too is
those two will affect what happens.
I don't think the Giants are going to sit there and pay. Too hypothetical. We don't need to go down this rabbit hole right now. We got another couple of years before we have to have this conversation.
Thanks for listening to Two Giant Goofballs, a New York Giants podcast. We appreciate your support.
Thanks so much.